Hello, in this video we're going to look at a couple of other areas of the Toyota production system. One is the approach towards building in quality, and that's called Jidoka, and the other is a thing called the Andon chord. Jidoka is an incredibly important part of Toyota. Jidoka is one of the two main pillars of the entire production system, and it's all about how you build quality into a system. And it originally referred to machines that would stop whenever there was a fault rather than just carrying on regardless. However, it's become much more than that. It's now a way of stating just how important it is to stop and respond every time there is something that is abnormal and not good quality. Now, if you are making anything, whether that is a car, a microwave, a visit to a theme park, or a hospital appointment, one approach to quality is that you could wait until everything's complete and then have a look at it. You could inspect the quality at the end. Hopefully everything would be perfect, but usually that's not the case. And that would mean if you were building helicopters, you'd build the helicopter and then have somebody quality inspect it and do all the fixing of the errors. Some errors are obvious. Helicopters need rotors, not animals, to be able to fly. But other errors can be obscured by that. You can spend so much time fixing the obvious problems that you miss the minor ones. And in fact, there is an error on this picture just now. The approach of doing quality inspection at the end doesn't allow you to understand when the errors actually occurred. It doesn't allow you to tackle the root causes of them, and in the meantime you may have produced tens or hundreds of helicopters with faults in. And healthcare tends to employ this approach. The first you ever hear about problems with how you've completed someone's care record or how you've prescribed for somebody is when it's picked up during an audit some months later, and at that point it's too late to go back and fix the problem. The Toyota approach of Jidoka is to formally build in quality inspection at every single step, and that means that every worker knows how things should look at each point in the process and flags up if it isn't right. Everybody becomes a safety inspector. And so if you were on a helicopter plant and you'd just received a partially built helicopter with something wrong with it, you'd stop at that point and fix the problem. Now the problem with the helicopter, and it was present on the last one, is that there's a bit that's red that should actually be black. Halfway through building the helicopter is the right time to spot that problem. It gives you a chance to fix it and to understand the root cause. Now the root cause may just be a random rogue employee who's a bad fit. I'm sorry Hulk, I know your CV said that you're incredible, but I really don't think that your face fits here. You should maybe go and try the theme park. But that's rarely ever the case. It's usually the system that's at fault. Now it might just be that poor Hulk had too little time to get the job done reliably. Perhaps Hulk's been trying to fight his way through a chaotic mixture of different blocks in order to find the right one, and he was never going to be able to get all of the red blocks and black blocks separated. Maybe Hulk just needs a bit of remedial tuition or a bit of help controlling his emotions at work. But by tackling the system, you get to reduce the odds of the error ever happening again. In Devon Partnership, there are lots of stories of how defects in one process are then passed on to the next person. I've spoken to treatment teams who talk about the difficulties of having an assessment that's only partially completed handed to them, and so instead of treating somebody from the beginning of the first session, they end up having to go back, completing all the bits of the assessment that were missed. But equally, the assessment teams can struggle. When a patient's discharged, they're often not discharged with a comprehensive plan about what to do if they come back. So you can end up in a really challenging situation where one part of the service is causing problems for the next one. Ultimately, the only way to tackle this is to try and build in quality at each step. And you can imagine how helpful it would be for an assessment team if they knew that every patient who was referred, who had been seen before, had a clear plan about what to do and what strategies to take. Equally, how helpful it would be for a treatment team knowing that every patient who comes through to treatment has every single part of their assessment complete and they can just get on with the treatment. So by looking at things at a systems level, you can improve the quality of care overall and lead to a better experience for the patient. So, Jidoka means that if a defect is spotted, whether that's an animal for a rotor or a missing risk assessment, the approach is first of all to identify that it's not right, stop, then fix the defect to make sure you don't hand it on to anyone else, and then work out the root cause and correct that cause. So that might mean finding some way of stopping Hulk from installing animals onto helicopters, or speaking to Jane to try and work out why she's not able to reliably do a risk assessment for her patients. There may well be an excellent reason that needs to be tackled. And that takes us on quite nicely to the Andon chord. In places using the Toyota production system, there is a thing called an Andon, and essentially this is just a signal. It's a way of indicating that something isn't right. And in Toyota plants, when something is wrong, you pull the Andon cord, and this slows down the production line so that you can put the problem right, there and then, and you don't hand it on. When you pull the Andon cord, your manager comes along and works with you to solve the problem. Now ultimately, if you can't fix the problem, the Andon cord reaches the point where you can bring the entire production line to a complete stop and everybody comes around to fix the problem. Surprisingly, it's not seen as a bad thing to have to stop an entire production line. It's seen as being far worse to pass on quality problems to someone else. And ultimately, if you don't stop and fix the problems there and then, you'll be making the same errors over and over. Long term, by building in the quality, the product actually becomes cheaper, whether that's a helicopter or healthcare, and that's always good for the accountants. Now there are some places that have pioneered approaches like Andon in medicine. Virginia Mason have a system where any employee at any time of the day can raise a patient safety alert if they spot that something isn't right that's placing a patient at risk, and senior people come around them immediately to try and rectify it any time of the day. In fact, even patients and their relatives can raise alerts. So this leads us onto a question, which I'm going to leave hanging at the end of the video. And this question is, how do we take an approach like this and apply it to mental health care in Devon Partnership Trust?